The Mandela Dollar does not exist yet. There is no live token, no public blockchain address, no exchange where you can buy it. But that is not the part I find most interesting. Creating a token is relatively easy. The hard part is giving anyone a reason to use it, because in 2026, the world is not waiting for another digital dollar. USDT already has global liquidity. USDC already has institutional trust. RLUSD already has Ripple's payment network. PYUSD already has PayPal's distribution. So the real question is not, can Mandela Digital create a stablecoin? The real question is, why should the Mandela Dollar exist at all? And where exactly does Datavault AI fit inside that answer? Let me make this personal. Suppose I send $200 from the United States to my family in Nepal. The blockchain transaction might settle in seconds. But my family cannot buy groceries with a blockchain confirmation. Someone still has to collect my dollars. Someone has to issue the digital dollars. Someone has to move them legally across borders. Someone has to convert them into Nepalese rupees. And someone has to place that money inside a bank account, mobile wallet, or actual hand. That full chain is the product, not just the token. Datavault AI says its technology could operate in the middle of that chain: issuance, redemption, compliance, and reserve transparency. If that becomes real, Mandela Dollar could be one of the clearest tests of whether DVLT's tokenization technology can become operating financial infrastructure. But there is still a large gap between the announcement and that outcome. I own DVLT. It is a meaningful position for me. So I want this project to succeed, but I do not want to take a massive remittance market, apply an imaginary market share, and pretend that number belongs to Datavault. We need to follow the transaction, then follow the money. The remittance problem is real. The World Bank estimated that officially recorded remittances to low and middle income countries reached approximately $685 billion in 2024. That was larger than foreign direct investment and official development assistance combined. The true amount may be even higher because informal transfers are not fully recorded. The normal pitch is simple. Traditional remittances are slow and expensive. Stablecoins move quickly, problem solved, but that skips half of the payment. The total cost is not only the blockchain fee. It may include the fee to collect the sender's money, the foreign exchange spread, compliance costs, the local payout fee, and sometimes another charge to place the money inside a bank account or mobile wallet. The blockchain can make the middle of the transaction faster. It does not automatically make the beginning or the end cheaper. Foreign exchange liquidity is especially important. If a local partner cannot efficiently convert MUSD into Kenyan shillings, Nepalese rupees, or Ghanaian cedis, the fast blockchain transfer does not help much. So the real MUSD system would need to look like this. A customer provides dollars. A regulated institution converts those dollars into MUSD. MUSD moves through a digital network. A partner in the destination country receives it. That partner converts it into local currency. And the recipient gets usable money. Every step requires a real institution. That helps explain why the current early access program is focused on banks, payment companies, intergovernmental organizations, and other institutional participants. It is not yet a consumer launch. And early access is not adoption. It is institutions raising their hands and expressing interest. There is still no live MUSD token, no public blockchain deployment, and no confirmed payment corridor. This is the most important challenge to the entire project. Mandela Digital could create a branded remittance service and use an existing stablecoin underneath it. That would immediately provide more liquidity, more wallet support, and more exchange integration. Creating a new stablecoin means starting from zero circulating supply, zero redemption history, zero merchant acceptance, and zero reason for a payment company to hold it instead of an established alternative. So MUSD must offer something that existing stablecoins do not. The public story suggests a few possible advantages. The Mandela name could create recognition and cultural trust. The project could focus on specific underserved corridors instead of serving the entire crypto market. Regional institutions may help shape the system before launch. And part of the economics is intended to support social impact programs. That combination is different, but different is not enough. MUSD eventually needs to answer a practical question. What can an institution do with MUSD that it cannot do more easily with USDC, USDT, or RLUSD? Maybe MUSD offers lower total corridor costs. Maybe it builds direct relationships with regional banks and governments. Maybe it provides better local liquidity. Maybe the governance structure and social mission attract institutions that would not support a normal commercial stablecoin, but those advantages still need to be demonstrated. The Mandela name may open the door. It cannot create liquidity by itself. There are 3 disclosed parties. The first is Unity Reserve Holdings. Unity Reserve is described as the architect of the project. It says it designed the Mandela Dollar framework, structured the venture, and brought the partners together. The second is Mandela Dlamini and Manaway LLC, or MDM LLC. This is the Mandela family affiliated organization providing the authorized connection to Nelson Mandela's name and legacy. Zaziwe Dlamini Manaway, Nelson Mandela's granddaughter, is identified as one of the project's representatives. The third party is Datavault AI. Datavault is the publicly traded technology company inside the joint venture. The signed agreement describes DVLT as a founding member and the exclusive technology partner. Its platforms are expected to support MUSD issuance, redemption, compliance, and on-chain transparency. There is an important distinction here. A Mandela family-affiliated organization is involved. That does not mean the South African government guarantees MUSD. It does not mean the token is sovereign currency. And the disclosed partner is not the Nelson Mandela Foundation. The family relationship is still valuable. The Mandela name carries global recognition and trust, but it also raises the standard. A normal startup may survive a messy launch. A financial product carrying Nelson Mandela's name has much less room for a reserve problem, DPEG, compliance failure, or customer loss event. The brand is an advantage. It is also a responsibility. The easiest way to understand Datavault's possible role is to follow one institutional transaction. Imagine a payment company wants to acquire $10 million of MUSD. First, the company must be approved, its legal identity has to be verified, its owners may need to be checked, its jurisdiction has to be reviewed, its wallet addresses may need to be approved, and sanctions and anti-money laundering checks have to be completed. Next, the payment company sends 10 million real dollars to an approved bank or reserve custodian. The custodian confirms that the money arrived. Only then should 10 million MUSD be created. That is minting. The system must record who requested the mint, who approved it, how many tokens were created, which wallet received them, and whether reserve assets still match the number of tokens in circulation. The institution can then move the MUSD, but compliance continues. The system may need to check receiving wallets, monitor unusual activity, apply limits, create regulatory reports, and freeze or burn tokens when legally required. When the institution wants its dollars back, it sends the MUSD to a redemption address. The tokens are destroyed, the custodian receives confirmation, and the dollars are returned. Datavault says its technology would support this issuance, redemption, compliance, and transparency workflow. That is the recurring revenue argument. DVLT would not simply build the system once and disappear. Its software could remain involved every time MUSD is issued, redeemed, or checked. Reserve reconciliation is another important part. The blockchain can show how many MUSD tokens exist. It cannot independently look inside a bank account. Someone has to receive information from the custodian, compare it with the token supply, and publish evidence that the reserves match. Datavault's intellectual property around tokenized minting, authentication, and verified data may be relevant here, but patents are not production proof. A patent protects a method. It does not prove the system can safely process billions of dollars. Only a real deployment can prove that. Sanctum AI may support the security and data processing side. That could be useful for banks and governments handling sensitive information. But Sanctum does not replace the issuer. It does not hold the reserves. It does not provide foreign exchange liquidity. And it does not deliver local currency to the recipient. It protects part of the machine. It is not the entire machine. Suppose MUSD moves from the United States to Kenya in 5 seconds. What happens next? Can the recipient convert it into Kenyan shillings? At what price? How much liquidity is available? Which bank or mobile money provider accepts it? What happens during a weekend, a banking outage, or a sudden currency crisis? This is the last mile problem. The blockchain may settle instantly while the recipient still waits for usable money. That is why the believable path is not a launch across the entire global south. That would involve dozens of countries, currencies, regulators, and banking systems. The realistic path begins with one corridor, one sending institution, one destination country, one local bank or mobile money partner, one reliable conversion process. Prove that the customer can send money, redeem it, and receive local currency at a lower total cost. Then repeat the model elsewhere. There is also a political issue. The same feature that makes MUSD attractive to users, a digital US dollar, may make some central banks uncomfortable. A country with a weak currency may worry that people will move their savings into digital dollars. That can reduce demand for the local currency. It can weaken capital controls, and it can make monetary policy more difficult. So MUSD is not only a technology project, it is also a monetary sovereignty negotiation. Some governments may welcome cheaper remittances. They may be less excited about a private dollar network growing inside their borders. That is why the first named jurisdiction will matter so much. This is the part that matters most to DVLT shareholders. The company says its role could create recurring economics. But the commercial terms are not public. We do not know Datavault's exact ownership percentage in the venture. We do not know the size of its capital commitment. We do not know whether it receives a fixed platform fee. We do not know whether it earns money on every mint or redemption. We do not know whether it shares in reserve income. And we do not know whether the agreement includes minimum guaranteed payments. There are several possible revenue streams. DVLT could receive an initial implementation fee. It could charge an annual software licensing fee. It could charge for institutional integrations and compliance processing. It could receive a fee whenever MUSD is issued or redeemed. And as a founding venture member, it may receive a share of Mandela Digital's profits. A simple way to think about it is DVLT value equals platform fees plus venture profit share minus operating costs and capital commitments. Transaction volume alone does not tell us enough. Suppose MUSD eventually processes $10 billion each year. At 1 basis point, the fee would be $1 million. At 5 basis points, it would be $5 million. At 10 basis points, it would be $10 million. A basis point is 1/100th of 1%. The difference between 1 basis point and 10 completely changes the value of the project. And today, we do not know the fee. There is also reserve income. If 1 billion MUSD were circulating and the reserve assets earned 4%, the reserves could generate roughly $40 million of gross annual interest before expenses and distributions. But who receives that income? The issuer, Mandela Digital, the reserve manager, charitable programs, Datavault. We do not know. This is why a $1 billion MUSD supply would not mean $1 billion of DVLT revenue. The stablecoin supply represents liabilities backed by reserve assets. The actual business earns money from fees, reserve yield, and supporting services. Only the portion contractually belonging to Datavault matters to shareholders. The announcement I eventually want is not MUSD processed $1 billion. I want Datavault earned this much revenue, collected this much cash, and produced this margin. That is the number that changes the investment case. Every established stablecoin already owns something. USDT owns liquidity. USDC owns institutional trust. RLUSD owns Ripple's payment relationships. PYUSD owns PayPal's distribution. So what can MUSD own? Its possible advantage is narrower, the Mandela identity, regional institutional relationships, a social impact mission, and a specific focus on underserved corridors. That may be enough to win one market. It is not enough to win the entire stablecoin industry. and it does not need to. A new stablecoin does not have to replace USDT to become valuable. It needs a group of institutions with a specific reason to use it repeatedly. The real moat would not be the token contract. A token contract can be copied. The moat would be regulatory approvals, banking access, local liquidity, payment integrations, trusted redemption, and repeat users. Datavault's patents may support the technology. The network around that technology will determine whether the business survives. For MUSD, the most important U.S. law is the Genius Act. The Genius Act created a framework for payment stablecoin issuers. In general, only permitted issuers can issue payment stablecoins in the United States. The rules cover areas such as reserve assets, redemption, custody, audits, risk management, and supervision. That means Mandela Digital eventually needs a permitted issuer or a qualifying arrangement with one. Datavault's technology cannot replace that legal entity. The Clarity Act addresses the broader digital asset market. It deals with the roles of the SEC, CFTC, exchanges, and other intermediaries. If Clarity becomes law, it could make the surrounding environment more predictable. Institutions may feel more comfortable integrating digital assets. Exchanges may have clearer registration paths. And DVLT's wider tokenization business may benefit, but Clarity is not the single switch controlling Mandela Dollar. If Clarity fails, a properly permitted stablecoin could still operate under the Genius framework. The larger risks are practical: no permitted issuer, no banking partner, no usable liquidity, no regulatory approval in target countries, or no strong reason for institutions to choose MUSD over an existing stablecoin. Good legislation can create the road. It cannot force customers to use it. This is how I would track the project. This is where we are today. There is a signed three-party joint venture. There is a Mandela family-affiliated brand relationship. Datavault is the founding and exclusive technology partner, and the institutional early access process is open. That is more than an idea, but it is not yet a financial network. Next, I want to see the legal issuer, the reserve custodian, the banking partner, the blockchain, the reserve attestation firm, and the first target jurisdiction. Then I want a deployed smart contract, a professional security audit, a functioning mint and burn process, a live reserve dashboard, and evidence that Datavault's platform is performing the work described in the announcement. A named institution acquires MUSD. It sends the stablecoin across a real payment corridor. A local partner converts it. And the recipient receives usable local currency. Then we compare the full cost and time with existing remittance systems, not only blockchain settlement speed, the entire customer experience. One pilot is useful. Repeat usage matters more. I would track circulating supply, transaction volume, redemption volume, institutional users, local liquidity, and repeat transactions. This is the final level for shareholders. Recognized revenue, cash collected, gross margin, recurring fees, Datavault's share of venture economics, and the cost of supporting the network. That is when MUSD becomes measurable Datavault business. At the beginning of this video, I asked why anyone would create another stablecoin when USDT, USDC, RLUSD, and PYUSD already exist. I still think that is the right question. Mandela Dollar does not need to become the largest stablecoin. It needs to become the best solution for a specific group of institutions and payment corridors. The Mandela identity may help open those relationships. Datavault's technology may provide the issuance, redemption, compliance, and reserve transparency layer underneath them. If that happens, DVLT could sit inside a recurring financial workflow. That would be valuable. But today, MUSD is still a proposed system. There is no live token, no name-permitted issuer, no disclosed reserve custodian, no first payment corridor, and no revenue we can measure. So I do not view Mandela Digital as a finished business. I view it as an option on future execution. A genuinely interesting option, but still an option. The next announcement I need is not another estimate of the global remittance market. We already know the market is enormous. I want one issuer, one banking partner, one corridor, one completed transaction, and then I want to know what Datavault earned from it. That is when the story changes. That is when Mandela Dollar stops being a powerful name attached to an ambitious design and starts becoming actual financial infrastructure. And watch my Quest video next. It investigates a completely different token, but the core question is the same. What has to exist underneath the token before the token means anything?